When you dare to share, you break the silence. When you dare to share, you speak your truth. When you dare to share, you use the full strength of your voice. When you dare to share, it brings opportunity to own your story. So tell it, be heard, and at the same time, your sharing is someone else's learning, inspiration, motivation, empowerment, and hope. There's always an element to each of our stories that remains a secret. For some, we feel it's a dirty little secret. Dare to share your untold story exposes these secrets in a welcoming and positive way. I encourage each of you out there to dare yourself to share what is yours to tell. When we dare, it is the courage to do something really important. Let this be a vow to each and every single one of us that we take risk, we brave, confront, and face what is, while inspiring and empowering all communities. So let's break that silence and tap into mental beauty. This is Salima Jadavji, your podcast host, a practicing social worker, and your mental wellness connoisseur. Welcome to the Dare to Share Your Untold Story podcast, episode number 104, The Quest of 3 Cancers, 3 Conquers in 3 Years. To all my fellow listeners, before we get started, I'm just dropping in a note to give you a heads up that this podcast might be emotionally triggering for you. We do invite guests onto the show who share openly about extremely difficult life moments with exposure and impact of what the struggles have been like. The intensity of each episode could have a variable impact on your emotional and mental well-being based on your own personal story. If at any point the topic becomes uncomfortable or upsetting to you in any way, please do not pressure yourself to listen. Instead, be kind to yourself, do some self-care, and perhaps give another episode a try. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing our courageous and daring guest, Trent Brock. Trent, originally from Shreveport, Louisiana, had a career in IT that took him across the United States and around the globe. In 2005, he moved to New Zealand, where in 2011, a chance opportunity led him to start a weekend craft market kettle corn business. Over the next 14 years, his company, NZ Kettle Corn, became the second largest popcorn manufacturer in New Zealand, distributing internationally across Australasia and the Middle East. However, while running his successful business, Trent faced a series of life-altering health challenges, including 3 aggressive cancers spanning a 3-year journey. Despite the odds of survival, Trent returned home to Arkansas in the United States, where he embraced significant lifestyle changes and was declared cancer-free in the fall of 2021. As of August 2024, he continues to remain cancer-free. In early 2024, Trent sold his popcorn business and transitioned into a new chapter as an inspirational speaker, cancer coach, and patient advocate. He actively volunteers with his local nonprofit Cancer Challenge, where he was honored with the Hidden Hero Award as the top volunteer. Trent is also a best-selling author with his work featured in Breaking the Silence, Voices of Survivors, Volume 1. His second volume released in October 2024. Well, hello there. Welcome, Trent, to the Dare to Share Your Untold Story podcast.
Cool, thanks. Glad to be here.
Awesome. It is so great to have you here as a guest on the show today. I'm really grateful for your willingness to be here today, Trent, for you to tell your story. You know, I'm really humbled to encounter guests just like you who allow me to tap into their vulnerabilities and draw on their strength and insight and inspiration, all of these goodies that get shared into this space. And it's incredibly important that we take a stance together to help break barriers of mental stigma. So, Trent, in case you're still wondering, this podcast is all about bringing forward untold stories that people go through, whether directly about a mental health struggle or something else. And we know that no matter the story, there is impact on one's own mental health in some way, which remains tucked away. So this platform, it serves in a way to break the barriers of mental stigma that have been conditioned in our society. So today, together, you and I, my hopeful mission is that for both of us to encourage people to share and tell what individuals typically have reservation to express. And of course, I continue to bring a trend forward, and it's called the mental beauty rethink. Trent, what immediately comes to your mind when you hear this phrase, the mental beauty rethink?
Well, I haven't heard that before.
I know.
Mental beauty rethink. I guess just a renewed, beautiful way to think about something.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe different than how you initially thought about it.
Right. Maybe something different than what I might have initially thought about something. All right. So, Trent, I'm ready to dive deep with you today to uncover your untold story. Shall we go ahead?
Yeah, let's rock.
Okay, let's do it. All right. So, for the first question, Trent, give us the newspaper headline of how you would title your untold story. How would it read?
The ultimate underdog overcomes the ultimate circumstances.
Okay. Can you say it one more time for me, please?
The ultimate underdog overcomes the ultimate circumstances.
The ultimate underdog overcomes the ultimate circumstances. Okay. I feel like that is a hot headline. and and I don't know if I can ask you to tell me more about what the headline is without giving away your story. So perhaps without further ado, let's just go there. Let's get into your untold story. Just give us that snapshot for us to start with. You know, the who, the what, the when, the main themes. Give it to us.
Yeah, originally from the States, traveled everywhere, ended up in New Zealand, kind of like my profile said, and moving along in life, everything was great. Running what I like to coin the phrase of the factory was popcorn heaven. Spent a
Mm-hmm.
lot of time there. It was kind of the running joke. Everything kind of began to unravel in 2019
Mm-hmm.
when I got diagnosed with aggressive hip bone cancer.
Mm-hmm.
The beginning stages, it was terrible, really. The way it started out was I started limping around the factory working. I went to 3 different doctors,
Okay.
and they all basically came up with the same synopsis that I had torn one of my butt muscles, one of my gluteus muscles.
Right.
Probably, doing something strenuous in the factory, picking something up, lifting over. This went on for several months. I went into the hospital, had to have some blood work done, just totally unrelated to this. Luckily the hematologist and I were kind of on a very frank but friendly relationship, and she just said, "Look, you're getting an X-ray today on that leg." And we kind of argued about it a little bit. I thought it was unnecessary, as a waste of time. I got work to do.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of obliged. Luckily that I did, because she pretty much saved my life, to be honest. The first time my life's been saved, and on this journey. And then a week later, I get a phone call, on my way to lunch, leaving the factory, and tells me I've got this aggressive hip bone cancer, and where am I and what am I doing? I'm sitting in my truck on the way, and she said, "Well, you're in danger of every single step that you take of breaking your hip. If you break your hip, the leg will come off. We won't be able to repair it. You have about a quarter inch of bone holding your leg on from your pelvis. So this is about 20 mil or so, to give you an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And we're surprised that you haven't broken your leg yet. We don't know how you haven't. How are you getting to the hospital? You need to get here immediately. And when you get in the parking lot, order a wheelchair, because we don't want you walking anymore."
Oh my goodness.
So this is the intro. And immediately, right, I kind of begin to go into shock. And the thing that put me in the hole from the very start was about 9 months before this had happened. My
Mm-hmm.
brother's best friend, a friend of the family, my aunt and uncle's godson,
Right.
he had cancer for a few years. He died at the age of 38 and left his wife and kids a year before we had a big party and things were great and he was doing
Right.
well and he was on the upswing. And then all of a sudden things took a turn. 2 weeks later, he was gone.
Oh my goodness, that's very quick.
That kind of sets the stage for you. So when I got diagnosed with the cancer thing,
Right.
I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die of cancer like my buddy.
Well, it's devastating. Like the doctor, even like when the doctor called you to give you the news, like everything that she said
Oh yeah.
was that was just so devastating for me to hear, let alone how it might have been for you.
Yeah. So, right. Okay. Well, straight into the hospital, check in. And, I realize it's getting to be Friday afternoon. And I know this is public health care and nobody works on the weekend and nothing's going to happen. I got work to do. So I just
Hmm.
talked to the surgeon. I said, look, I got a business to run and I'm leaving. So, you guys can call me, whatever you need me to do, whatever tests you want to run, anything. I'm happy. I'll come in at any time. But I'm not sitting around here waiting while I got a business to run.
Right. And so what progressed from there? I know you had three cancers. So this was the hip cancer. So and you're still here, right? And so
Yeah,
you
yeah,
you didn't lose your leg, I'm assuming. So or tell me, like what happened with your hip and your leg? Like
absolutely. Yeah,
what
yeah,
was the
yeah.
outcome there?
The plan was that we're gonna make an implant. It's gonna have to be a custom implant. They'll
Okay.
cut out the cancer. They'll put in the implant, and life will be, I guess, back to normal.
That sounds promising.
It sounded like a good plan at the beginning. Well,
Hmm.
this public health care thing takes a couple months to get the implant made. Well, obviously, the
Hmm.
cancer has progressed. And so when they're ready to do the surgery, the implant wouldn't fit. I mean, these implants are have to be precise, like down to tighter than a millimeter. Okay.
Right, of course.
So it doesn't fit. It's not going to fit. So look, we got to start over. 6 months of this, third time through, and the doctor just said, look, cancer's progressed too far. We can't do anything. We can't save the leg. We're cutting the leg off.
My goodness.
Well, I mean, to the point where, okay, they had a volunteer guy that came in and takes his pants off, takes his leg off, shows me everything, and I have a meltdown. I can't do that.
Right.
Here's a little kind of piece of advice that I have learned through everything. If you think that you're going to have some news that might be a surprise to you, that you may not be ready to accept, that could be bad news, take someone with you.
Mm,
It's practical, they can listen, they can remember what happens. Because about probably the first 3 or 4 times, major news that they would tell me, I would black out.
well, yeah, it's shocking, right? It's shocking. It's a lot to absorb.
Well, and I think everybody kind of gets into this and they don't realize it, that you get this news and you carry on a full conversation and everything kind of makes sense in the moment. And you're making life, death, possibly limb keeping decisions.
Right.
After the conversation, you don't remember what happened. You don't remember what you talked about. You don't remember the important details. So I figured out, let's have somebody on the call that, can help me talk through everything afterwards, that can help me making a decision about what we're going to do.
Hmm.
I had started doing that, and my folks were on the phone, and my
Hmm.
dad just stepped in, like a dad would and a dad should, and
Hmm.
just said, you're not cutting his leg off.
Hmm.
That's not going to happen. You can't do that to the guy.
I'm so glad he was on the phone. It's like you had someone advocating for you.
And here's the thing. Here's one of the things that I live by. My dad
Mhm.
said, you don't know my son. He's a fighter. He's not a quitter. It doesn't matter what the percentage chances are. He will make this thing work somehow. You got to give him a chance. If you want to, cut the leg off later, but you can't do that to the guy now.
Mm-hmm.
And, the doctor said, well, it's not my recommendation. His quality of life will not be as good. The leg is going to be shorter than the other. He will be handicapped. He'll never walk again. I can't guarantee feeling functionality or anything with the leg. It possibly may come off during the middle of surgery. 99% of the people that have this have their leg cut off. I basically am going to cut this guy's leg off, cut out all the cancer, and sew the leg back on, and we'll see what happens.
Right.
And my dad said, great, because you can't grow back a leg. So leave it. And so they left it. And
Mm.
we got the cancer. but I got a chronic hip infection from the first surgery. I had several subsequent surgeries, never cured it, did all the antibiotic stuff, did everything we could, 4 months in the hospital. Finally, healed up good enough to get out of the hospital. Mom and dad went home. I went back to work.
Right.
Just trying to get back into the normal routine of life. Have my next scan and pancreatic and lung cancer. Well, that's a double punch, right? Double punch.
Mm-hmm.
Pancreatic cancer is less than a 5% chance with treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't make it, a year or two, five, nobody does, right? So we're going to cut the tumor out on the pancreas. Okay, great. Well, between the diagnosis and the surgery, COVID hits. So they lock us down, right? Lock us down like caged animals in New Zealand, and it is tough. No visitors in the hospital, no one to visit, no one anything. You're all alone. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. Okay, well, surgery, have the surgery. That went fine. All good.
But you were by yourself.
Yeah.
That must have been so tough.
Oh man, yeah, it was. Yeah, it gets a lot. It's a lot tougher than this.
Mm-hmm.
When I get the debrief from the surgery results and everything, I get a congratulations. You don't have cancer.
Okay. That's good news.
Okay, cool. Well, what happened?
Right.
Well, a long series of excuses. It was a blood clot that they mistaked for a tumor and cut out half of my pancreas and spleen.
Oh my
For
goodness.
nothing, for a mistake, for an error. I basically got the, hey, you're lucky it wasn't cancer kind of thing. If you want to fill out a complaint, go ahead. The form's right here, and the rubbish bin's right there. So that's kind of how it goes. No consequences for the public system in that perspective. Okay, well, let's that's a win. Let's move on.
Right.
The lung thing, then we have the lung cancer. So have the lung, one of my lobes cut out. That went all right, but that got infected, and the hip's still infected a year later. So they want to do another surgery on my hip to take out this small wire that they had put in. Well, the junior surgeon did the surgery as a total botch up, caused a surgical hernia, bladder issues with nerve bladder issues where I think I need to go to the bathroom and I don't a lot all the time. The incision was so big and so large that they told me that they didn't think it was ever going to grow, it was ever going to heal permanently, and that I may deal with this wound, for the rest of my life, which was kind of in a nice way telling me that, maybe this is going to kill you because we can't heal you up. I was cut open from my belly button all the way around to my spine and halfway down my leg, literally. So that gives you an idea how big this incision was.
Right.
So that was rough. That was tough. In the end, the wire wasn't causing the infection, so I still had the infection. Never got rid of that. Right. So still going through COVID. That was 2.5 months in the hospital all alone.
2.5 months.
Yep. Supposed to be a couple weeks, turned into 2.5 months. So when they released me, they decided. They came in one day. The surgeon came in one day. This guy, great surgeon. Not so great bedside manner. Just said, "Look, you're leaving tomorrow. You're out of here tomorrow." And I said, and I'm like, "Well, how are we going to do that? I've got an IV, machine in my arm. I've got a vacuum thing on my hip, sucking out, the fluid, trying to make this thing heal. I got an open wound on the back of my shoulder from the lung cancer that's infected." Right. And I'm on crutches. They help me get in and out of the bed every day.
How would you be able to do that on your own?
That's what I asked them.
Right.
Well, you have roommates and flatmates, and they'll be able to help you. Well, not really, because we had a major falling out over the whole COVID thing, and so I didn't have any roommates for a year and a half. We had a falling out, and we're on no speaking terms, and there's nothing you can do.
But Trent, even if you were on speaking terms, you can't just expect that from other people, not knowing if they have the capacity to do that, right? It's a lot to put on someone.
He said, look, we have somebody that needs this bed more than you do. We only have limited beds, and you're out of here tomorrow.
Okay.
And I'm like, I kind of didn't believe him. And so the next day, man, the nurse comes in. She packs my stuff up. They roll me down there. They give me a taxi chit and send me home. And that's that. Now, here is the real fun part. So it was such a quick discharge that they didn't release me with any medications.
Oh.
And, to be honest with you, I was kind of angry, so I didn't care. I was like,
Okay.
you know what, you guys, you're treating me like that. You don't want me around. I don't want to be around either. I'm happy to go.
Okay.
Now, I had been on methadone for pain management. And, most people know methadone for withdrawal from opiates and heroin and things like that. Well, in New Zealand, they use it for a pain management tool. Extremely effective. Probably one of the most effective things that I've ever had or used, but it's got a very long tail on it to get off of it, and it is highly addictive. So the first time, I had this the first time through with the hip, we kind of stepped me down off of it, never had any issues, never worried about it. I kind of thought, God, this is no big deal, whatever. Well, I was just on a very, very minor amount compared to what they had started. So I left, didn't think about it. Well, I start having these hot flashes and and feeling terrible. And, I'm just, my temper and my patience are just gone.
Oh, you were experiencing withdrawal.
Right. And I didn't know.
No. And they never prepared you for that. Even though it was a low dose, they never said that, like, after being on it for X amount of time, when you stop.
No one told me
Oh my goodness.
anything.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I'm sitting in my underwear, literally, in my office, in my factory, with the door shut, going, sweating over my computer, thinking, what is going on here? I'm talking like, it's so drastic. I'm like Long John's in a tracksuit, because I've got the shivers and I'm freezing. And then 10 minutes later, I'm in my underwear sweating bullets. And it took me 2 or 3 days. And then it dawned on me, oh my God, you're having withdrawal. So I call the hospital. Of course, no one answers the phone. Leave a message. They get back to me like a half a day or so later. And I'm like, I think I'm having withdrawal, blah, blah, blah. We can't give you anything because you've been released from the hospital. You're not under our care.
Oh,
okay, how are we going to do this? Well, so they get the GP involved. So finally, we get a script done. I have to call around finding this stuff.
Right.
Well, they don't have it anywhere because they don't issue it really outside of a clinical setting.
Right.
But I do find some. Okay, I found some. I'm losing it. Like, I'm having mental health issues. I have got anxiety. I am suicidal. I am about to lose it. I've had a couple of nervous breakdowns beforehand. I'm on the edge of the massive one, right? So finally, we figure it out, and I get some. They give me enough to get me through about 2 days. Okay. I go through this process every 2 days for several weeks. I'm like, dude, and you got to remember, I'm dragging this leg around with this open wound on crutches. I can't hardly move. Every single step, every single thing I do, my back hurts.
Well, it's also so much effort and physical. It's very labor intensive for you.
Yeah, you have no idea. I mean, this is where it got to, right? So I am strategically planning how many steps I have to take to go somewhere and how many times I'm going to get in and out of the car a day because it hurts so bad and it's so painful. It's like, I'm taking this many steps to get to the car, to get to the factory. I've got this many steps to get to my office. I lay on the couch all day. And then I do that routine to come home. On the way home, I'm going to stop at a drive-through, eat my food in the car, stop somewhere, where I can throw the rubbish bin out of my window so I don't even have to get out of the car to get home and get out of the car once to get back in the bed. Like, this is where I was at. It was rough, man. And this is COVID.
Right.
All alone.
it's like you had to be creative. You were resourceful. I mean, that is how you functioned. But it's like the things that you had to do to protect yourself or be there for yourself. You really had to think outside the box in order to cope.
Yeah, I honestly look back and I don't know how I did it. We're
Hmm.
still here, man. I'm just tough. I'm a tough guy, and everybody's tough. People don't think they are. You rise to the occasion. You will, and that's just kind of human nature, I think. Let me fast forward a little bit, right?
Okay.
So I decided to do this the hard way. I get frustrated. I get angry. And I'm like, you know what? I just did it the hard way. So for several weeks, man, I go through the ups and downs of withdrawal, and
Hmm.
the physical stuff went away pretty quickly, but the mental stuck with me for weeks. Seriously contemplating taking my life. I just couldn't, and the reason I couldn't is because the pain.
Hmm.
I couldn't do that to somebody. I couldn't do that to my family. I couldn't do that to my friends. So, I didn't, thank God, right? And we're still here to tell my story. So, okay, we get through all that. Right? Just trying to get back to my normal life of boring routine that I would so long for.
Right.
Next scan, no, you do have pancreas cancer. No, you really have it this time. Well, okay.
And what year was it by this point?
This is 2021.
Okay.
Okay, early 2021. It all
Right.
started in 19, and 19 had the hip thing. In 20,
Hmm.
the lung and the misdiagnosis surgery.
Right.
In 21, really have pancreas cancer.
Now it's like you really have.
Really got it this time. Okay, so can we do a biopsy this time? You wouldn't. You refused me last time, and told me it was cancer, and it wasn't. I can't do it. We got to have a biopsy because if you cut out my pancreas, it makes me a diabetic, and I'm not going out a diabetic. My grandmother was a diabetic. I watched that whole deal. That's a bad way to go. Not doing that.
Yeah.
Back and forth with the doctor, argue. Finally get a biopsy, 5 or 6 months later, and I'm getting smart now. I get the scan reports. I read them myself. I know what's going on to a degree. This thing had started out about the size, like like a green pea that you would have on your plate. Started out about that size when they caught it on the scan to the size of a tennis ball in about 6 months. It's growing into my stomach. I can't eat. I'm losing weight. I look in the mirror. Let's be honest. I'm pasty. I'm white. I'm thin. I'm dying. No doubt. Let's do something here. Okay. Started going to private doctors. Started paying for that. I was just like, I got to get this thing moving. I'm going to die soon. I really am. I know I am now.
Hmm.
Series of private doctors, all of them the same. This is going to kill you. You're going to die soon. You don't have a chance. Less than a 5% chance. We're giving you a year. You're done for. You had a good run. This one's going to get you. Go home and be with your family. Enjoy the last year of your life.
Mm.
Okay. Came home, and man, I just, what, really and truly, I just could not die on my parents. I watched these parents bury their kids,
Hmm.
and it is so sad. It's
Right.
just not the proper order that things are supposed to be in.
Yeah. Like no one wants to lose any family member, but it does
Right.
go against the order of like nature, right? Like,
Yeah. And I'm like, I
right.
gotta figure this out, man. This is going to crush my parents. I don't care about me anymore. I'm tired. I'm ready to give up. But I'm like, you know what, Trent? You have always figured out a way in every little problem that you've had in this business. You've figured this out. You can figure this out. This is just a series of problems that you've got to find a solution to. You can do this. And if you just concentrate on just winning today, can we win today? If we win today and we win enough days in a row, we'll stay alive. Okay, pretty simple, pretty simple. Let's just break this down real easy. So, I decided we're going to do treatment here in the States.
Hmm.
Found some people that wanted to be on my team and do this my way because I'm in charge of this. This is my life. This is
Hmm.
my health.
Right.
And
Right.
that was the big mind shift that I'm listening to these doctors. They're the experts. They know best. They know everything. They really don't. I mean, we need them. God love them. There's a place
Well,
for
you're
them.
the expert of you
Exactly.
as an individual, what goes on inside your body internally, like all those little things that you notice about your body. No one can speak to that. Only you can. Only you
Absolutely.
can voice what you experience, what you feel, the sensations, what you
Yeah.
don't sensate, like what sensations you don't feel. only you're going to know what those little things are.
Absolutely. You're the only person that's been inside that head for how many years you've been alive. This other guy
Exactly.
spends 5 or 10 minutes with you, and you're going to let him, make life and
Right.
death decisions for you?
And
No.
it's different for each person. So for them, after
Yeah.
5 or 10 minutes to be like, okay, so this is how we're going to do it. I'm sure after everything you'd been through, you were like, okay, no, this is not actually how it's going to go down. I got to create my own team.
Absolutely. Took me a couple years to get to that point, and I'm like, you know what? I want your input. I want your expert opinion. I want your advice, but I'm going to make the final call. I'm the quarterback of this team, and
Exactly.
that's how it should be. And most people do not approach their health in that manner,
Mm-hmm.
and they get themselves in a situation that they can't get out of, or they make a decision, and unfortunately, sometimes it costs their life.
Right.
So, okay. So, we get back, I have radiation, we zap it, we got that. Then I had this chronic infection. I found a doctor here. We did some things. We used some antibiotics. We did some stuff that had a slim chance, got over the infection, did that. All this stuff is like within handful percentage chances that that any of this would ever happen. Got
Mm-hmm.
myself in good enough shape, got over this infection, found a doctor, went all over the country, searched all over the world. No one would look at me, do anything, or touch me because I had had this chronic infection, or
Mm-hmm.
there was no solution because there literally was nothing to screw anything to put a hip in there. So I found this guy at Mayo Clinic through my advisors and everything. This guy does hips and knees that no one else in the world will do. I had a series of 4 surgeries last year, proprietary, never done before, like kind of experimental hip implant that ends up
Wow.
being the largest, most complex hip implant ever done in the world with procedures never attempted.
Oh my goodness.
I'm about a year out from it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
closer to walking than I ever have been.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of one of those things that's cutting edge, that's going to be published in the medical journals, and that they'll use in the future to help others.
You chose yourself. You advocated for yourself. You spoke your truth. You kept speaking. And if you weren't heard, you kept speaking louder and louder. That is so important for people to know because you literally did not give up on yourself. This is a result of you not giving up on yourself. Even when other people might not have been able to see it, you saw your worth and your value. And that is what allowed you to keep fighting for yourself.
Yeah, I did.
You did.
I had a period of about 2 to 3 weeks. Well,
Hmm.
when they told me I had the pancreas cancer, and
Hmm.
it was confirmed. I had a couple of weeks of being on the seesaw of I'm tired, I'm done, I've fought hard enough, and this is I'm taking myself out. I'm taking myself out
It seems like every time you got good news, it came with not so good news,
every
right?
time,
So,
every time, every
right.
time.
Hmm.
And I sat around the house. My team's like, well, Trent, everybody starts treating me precious, right?
Hmm.
You don't have to come to work, and you can stay home and take care of yourself. They're trying to be thoughtful. That
Hmm.
was the worst thing to do ever. I mean, I thought this is great, man. I don't have to put up with all this, you know, stuff in my popcorn business. I can just chill out. Well,
Right.
golly, that was cool for about 2 days. Looking at my watch, time's slowly ticking away, wishing, hoping, pining that somebody will be free to go to lunch to break up my day because I am so bored of myself. But no,
Right.
everybody else is at work. And all I'm doing is sitting around waiting to die, thinking about that, or just fixing this thing and ending it early. So 2 or 3 weeks of that, and I couldn't do that anymore. I called my team and said, "I'm coming back to work. I'm going to
Yeah.
make this popcorn business the best thing I've on the planet. This thing will outlive all of us. That's my legacy. That gives me
Right.
something to live for, and I'm going to go for it."
You really needed your routine too, right?
We all do.
We all do. It's also like that business was part of your identity, right? Like it was a big part of
Yeah,
who you
absolutely.
were.
It's who I was.
So it's kind of like, well, I can't just sit here. Like I need to be doing something and I want to be contributing the way I was and feeling useful, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's such a thing for, a lot of people, and, even more so, for men. And then, I'm even a business owner. Man,
Right.
I mean, I had it all lined up. I had to do something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so, the business, right? The business and stuff. They were like, how did you manage to run this business through terminal cancer, 9 months in the hospital, 25 plus surgeries, the list goes on and on and on. I'm like, because it was my escape.
Mm-hmm.
It's the thing I had to get up in the morning and keep me going. And my team called me when I'm laying in bed, pulling the covers over my head, going, I can't deal with today. I wish it was just nighttime. I could go back to bed. Calling me, going, we got popcorn to make. The machine's broken. We don't know what to do.
Right.
This and that. And I'm just like, oh my God, you guys drive me nuts. But it gave me a reason.
But it gave you something to focus on and it helped you keep
Yeah,
going.
they
Yeah.
gave me a reason to get out of bed. And I'll tell you, whatever happens, that's what happens to people. You get this major diagnosis, and they change everything and they start sitting around. Don't do that. You keep as much of your schedule and as much of your routine as you can, because that helps keep you grounded. That helps keep you moving. That helps keep you going. That keeps your head from screwing you, right?
Right. And so I'm actually curious, having gone through this, 3 cancers, 3 years, conquering it all, people, when they come to see me for therapy, Trent, individuals, they're typically in one of 3 places in their life. Sometimes they're getting started. They need to kind of figure out what they need to talk about, what they need to sift through, do some sorting. Some people are in the middle of a situation where they're in the thick of things and they really need to be able to get some clarity and help them with some guidance to be in a place to make good decisions about their next steps. Some people are looking back. They're trying to take next steps forward in their life, but they want to be able to either let go of things or make closure or understand some things from the past, put a close to certain things. So in terms of your journey, what part of the journey would you say that you're in? Would you say that you are getting started, in the middle, or looking back?
Oh, I mean, the whole cancer journey is in the total rear view mirror for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just, last Friday, I have to have a scan every 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, we get to go through the whole thing again and the reminder and all the stuff that goes with that. But it's official
Mm-hmm.
with the doctors that I am 3 years cancer free. I'm shutting the door on that. I'm done.
Okay.
I've
Yeah.
shut the door on that chapter. I'm moving on.
Right. That's great. You're looking back at it and you're moving forward. So that's awesome. So Trent, I'm also curious. You started to talk in several moments, several aspects of, sharing your journey, how your mental health was affected. I'm actually curious if you're able to share a little bit more about how your untold story really affected your mental health. You mentioned a time where, you wanted to end it all. What was that period like for you? Can you share more about that?
It kind of just is what it is exactly what it is, right? I mean, I'm cooped up in the house, and the worst scenario of this was they had the home health nurse come once a week to check on me and change my bandages and all that kind of stuff, and offer that support. Well, I never knew what time they were coming. And and they tell you they're in the morning and they don't come to the afternoon. So I'm having to sit around the house
Mm-hmm.
waiting on these guys, and if you ever get yourself into that situation, there are certain things, there are certain locations or settings that will trigger, the urge to take your own life, right? Just like you have a trigger to anything else that you may have an urge to do.
Mm-hmm. So for you, is it like this lack of control?
In what manner? What do you mean?
You were saying like the nurses, they would be assigned to come, but you wouldn't know if they're coming in the morning or the afternoon or the evening. And so you were sitting around waiting. So you don't really have control of, what you can do in your day because you said you're sitting around waiting, right? So,
It's that unknown thing of when are you going to show up, because I need to get out of here, and where I got to leave. I have to get out of here. I need to go for a drive. I need to go to the factory. I got to change my environment because I'm having a lot of trouble dealing with these thoughts and, right now, but I can't leave.
Right. So the home environment was triggering for you and you were trying to regain
balance. Yeah. I'm trying to get back. Yeah.
The balance of like, okay, this is not a great environment for me right now. Maybe it is when it's nighttime and I'm going to sleep.
Yeah.
And maybe in the morning when I wake up. But right now I need to be in a different space.
Yep.
And then not being able to do that because you don't know the unknown or the uncertainty, like what time of day are they coming, keeps you stuck.
Yeah, and I'm called here because, I have to see this nurse because they're charting everything. And if I'm not there around, well, then, I'm becoming a non-compliant, patient.
Right.
And, I need supplies and, I need bandages and all these things. And, it was a trapped feeling. Because the way I fixed it is, it's like, oh, you're kind of getting that feeling. You need to get out of here. And then I'm fine.
And so in terms of the emotions, like I'm sure like there was a roller coaster of emotions that you would have gone through throughout the period of the cancer journey and everything that you've been describing up until now. Did you ever take time to like work through the emotions, or did you ever have emotional support from people, or did you have any other like resources for people to rely on that you could feel you could talk to when you were frustrated and upset? Or
absolutely.
Yeah. What was that like for you?
I mean, my folks, I mean, I wouldn't be here without them. Rock solid, awesome, awesome people. We were a team in this whole deal. And, I realized after, a couple months of it starting way, way back with the hip thing, I'm like, I need some counseling. I got to talk to somebody that's, professional cancer counselor person, whatever. I started that. That was helpful. And, can still continue that, right? Still continue that. My perspective on that is some people, right, they don't start, going to counseling or whatever you want to call it until there's a problem. And, usually that's kind of you have something that urges you to start it. Then you get started, you do it for a while, you kind of get over that hump and you're like, you don't need it anymore. Maybe you don't need it as much, but you need it and you should never stop. And if you do, you get arrogant and think, I don't need this anymore. And then when something happens, you do need it. And what's happened is you've gotten behind because you haven't been putting the consistent time in to stay there and stay balanced. And you're trying to do this catch up and it doesn't work like that. So, my perspective is, if you need it intensively, then do that. But, and if you can back off a little bit, but don't ever stop.
Keep it in your life. Well, it's just like physical health. If you catch a bacterial infection of some kind, then you're going to go to the doctor and get medication and antibiotics and whatnot. So that's the part where you need more intense treatment. But otherwise, you're going to do things on a regular basis. That if you have any ongoing health conditions, you're going to take your medications on a regular basis. You're going to do exercise to make sure you have muscle mass and prevent injury and be strong and keep your circulation going and all the things that exercise benefits, proper nutrition. So those are all things that we do to focus on physical health. But if someone gets a diagnosis of diabetes, then they might need to be focusing more consistently and closely, like, okay, what are the foods that I'm eating or not eating, or what's my food plan here, right? But that's the physical aspect. So the emotional and mental health aspect really needs to be seen in the same way and treated in the same way. And we don't need to treat physical health and mental health in silos, and we don't need to be scared of our mental well-being or scared to work through it or to let anyone know that we need to work through it, because it's just as important. It's a part of us. It's not separate. And so it's really admirable to see that you were able to take those steps. You were able to notice that about yourself, and you were able to move forward in that way. Given that we've just discussed this, it actually gets me very curious to learn about what is your key message to the listeners of our show? What do you want them to know, Trent?
I would just like to say a couple of other little things about, like the tools and the things that I used and did, to change my mental health and perspective. First off, what happened is I had to make a decision, right? And I know the day, the time, I can see it in my mind when I say, you know what? I got to make some changes. I got to make some drastic changes because I need a drastic result or I am going
Mm-hmm.
to die from this soon. So it all starts with a decision. And
Mm-hmm.
then from there, you have to have a good reason. And the reason, a lot of times on the tough days, is going to be more than the decision or the goal. And my reason was I didn't want to die on my parents. I'd do anything not to die on them.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my reason. And I had a goal. So
Mm-hmm.
how are we going to get there, right? I had to cut out all the negative stuff, right? And so I started looking things up online. I would find positive stories of something. I'd find a person in my situation that had beat it, that had overcome it. If I watched a movie, I would
Mm-hmm.
visualize that I'm the superhero. I'm the
Mm-hmm.
one that did that, whatever. I did lots of self-help stuff. It was always positive, uplifting music or
Mm-hmm.
Christian music. Always had that going in the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of self-help things, miracle sermons, anything positive, anything optimistic that I would find. And once I found something that
Mm-hmm.
resonated with me, I put that thing on repeat and I listen to it day and night until I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm saying it to myself out loud, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
singing it, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking it, or when I wake up in the morning, that's the thing that's
Right.
on my mind. Then I know that it has gotten in me to the point where it's in there and you
Yeah.
can move on to the next lesson.
Right.
And that is how it took me 9 or 10 months to change my perspective, but that's how I did it.
Right.
So I really wanted people to hear that and know
Yes.
you got to do a lot of work and you
Mm-hmm.
have to absolutely engulf your entire life into this because you've had all this other time of thinking this way, being this way, the habits this way, and all that. It's hard to change. It's hard,
Yes.
you
It's
know?
an investment in your life.
Well, literally, change or die, right?
Right. Yep. If you've learned what your tools are and you've figured out what your resources are, then you have things to rely on so that you can refocus yourself and get
Yep.
yourself back on track.
That's
Uh,
it.
so
That's it.
that's amazing. And so this is actually a really great segue into a question I enjoy asking people, which is, what would you say was your game changer inspiration that's close to you that reflects your untold story? Like, I know it seems like you were able to rely on a lot of different resources, but is there like something that stands out for you, like an inspirational quote or a book or a speaker or a person or a place or a thing that really sparked for you?
Yeah. In the beginning, when I talked about my hip and my dad stepped in about
Mhm.
my cutting my leg off,
Mhm.
that moment that I was talking about where I was like, you know what? I was on the phone with my folks and,
Mhm.
we had just gotten news again from the doctor, about the
Mhm.
pancreas thing.
Mhm.
And man, I mean, my folks, I felt it, man. They were trying to be tough. They were trying to hide it, but I felt the hopelessness, the helplessness. I was on the other side of the world and I was dying and there was nothing they could do about it. They couldn't come see me. They couldn't do anything. And at that point, I was like, I got to fix this, man. I got to do this. And the thing that came in my head was, Trent, you're a fighter. You're not a quitter. You
Mhm.
can do anything. All you need is a chance, and you can make things work that no one else has ever been able to. That's what
Right.
I'm doing. That's who I am. That's who I am. And no one, calls the shots on me
Right.
except me.
And that was your ammunition. That was it.
That was
That
it.
was it.
That was it.
Okay.
My dad saying,
Hmm.
this guy can do things no one else can do. Give him a shot at it, man.
Yeah, it really shifted the trajectory because if he
It
wasn't on
did.
that call, you may not have been able to advocate for yourself in that way, but he
I
gave
wouldn't have
you.
a leg. I wouldn't have a leg, and I would be a mad, mad person.
Right.
I know I would.
Right. So what's a cause or organization that has been impactful to you on your journey that you would like to give a shout out to?
So I dedicate, my volunteer time and effort and everything to the Cancer Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
They are our local area cancer nonprofit organization. I'm highly involved, extremely involved in that. I like the fact that, the expenses and the admin is like super duper low, just enough for them to squeak by, and all the rest of the money stays right here in the local area and helps people that I know, that I've met, and it helped me in the beginning. And I used several of the resources and things that they offer. And, it's my way to give back, that I have an opportunity to give back to the same organization that helped me when I needed it.
It's like full circle, right? So it's part of the cycle of resourcing. Like they were there for you at a time of need, and now you can provide and be there for other people in their time of need as well.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So how can people connect with you if they would like to? How are you findable?
Let's see. My website is trentbrockcoaching.com.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
And I also believe you have a YouTube channel, or on YouTube you've got a collection of the things that you've been up to.
Yep.
And we've grabbed those handles from you. So it's going to be on your show notes page, so people can just click on that and have a look. But Trent.
Yeah.
Guess what?
Tell me.
You've just dared yourself to share. Congrats.
Awesome.
Yeah. Trent, I would just like to take a moment to express my gratitude for the deep story shared in this space today, speaking about your 3-time cancer journey, and not just how you came out the other side, but the journey as you moved through it all and what you have uncovered about yourself and your life's narrative. For me to witness your story and hearing what you've had to endure, I'm truly grateful to have been able to hear and witness your story today. So thank you for the deep conversation and for all the daring and sharing.
My pleasure. It's just all about helping that one person that needed to hear it.
Absolutely. And I'm sure there's more than just the one person, for sure. So once again, Trent, thank you for being part of Dare to Share Your Untold Story and helping to be a voice in breaking down the barriers of mental stigma. To all of our listeners, if you like what you've been hearing on this podcast and you want to be part of breaking down barriers of mental stigma, I invite you to go wherever you are listening to the episode and hit subscribe. Leave us a comment or a review of the episode and maybe how you relate to it. To learn more about what we offer, visit www.daretoheal.co. And if you are feeling ready and brave to share, please submit your story by visiting www.daretoshare.co. Thanks for joining in.